To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is Father Shawn Whittington's Paranormal Ministry Live 2.0. I'm your host, Father Shawn. And who is Father Shawn? I'm a lot of things. Don't listen to Zach. So he calls me some things too, but don't listen to him. Um, I'm an ordained Catholic priest.
Do I have stories?
I'm an ordained Catholic priest in the United States Old Catholic Church. And if you're looking for a church that doesn't judge and accepts everyone, check out the USOCC. We got a great um, private Facebook group page that anybody can join. And if it's not for you after a little while, you can leave. But check us out. Um, I'm also a fully professed brother in the Old Catholic Benedictines of Immaculate Mary. I am a team member of the Society of St. Benedict and co founder of Ghost Be Gone. On that note, if there's anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. If you go there to visit, there's a lot of cool things to see. But remember, my wife and I don't charge for our ministry work, helping people with their paranormal issues. So if you go there to visit and you notice the donate button, trust me, brothers and sisters, I know times are tough, but if you're able to click on it and send my ministry in a small donation, I promise you it'll be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts. And trust me, we'll put it to good use. Everything is there about me. My books, God Ghost and the Paranormal Ministry, God Ghost and the Paranormal Ministry 2. You can get the books in Kindle version now, and you can get them a lot less expensive at Amazon. If you buy them off of the website, I autograph them, and they come enclosed in a house blessing kit. And part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my books off of the website go to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and the ASPCA. So how cool is that? You get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. My online course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, is there if you're interested in enrolling in that. If you'd like more information about that course before making that type of commitment, there's a Father Shawn Whittington Introduction to Spiritual Warfare course, online course, Facebook page. You can go there and read a little bit more about the course if you'd like to. There's also a place on the website where you can make an appointment to speak with me about your spiritual issues, not paranormal, but spiritual. So that's it in a nutshell. Um,
We got to make an announcement here, though, Shawn.
sure.
Talking about your books. Again, we are until July. We're asking you to please take and tag all of your friends. Every time that we've seen that you've tagged your friends on this show, trying to get people to join us, join our program, join our show, become a guest, watch with us, share the words that you're being heard, you will be in the running to win one of each book, autographed copies, a autographed copy of Dr. Joy's book, Beastmark, and our co-host has also offered up some books as well.
Oh, cool.
So please remember, get out there, tag your friends. Every time that we've seen that every tag is an entry. And we are going to get together the week before the 4th of July. Or what did we decide on that?
Halloween.
Oh, that's right. The week before Halloween. And we're going to draw for a winner, and somebody's going to win all these wonderful books.
Very, very cool. That is very cool. Lots of stuff going on. And so what else do I want to say to you guys? Thank you all for tuning in, because I don't have a show without all you guys. I'm going to bring my co-host out, because I know she likes to be out here when we do the opening prayer. I'm going to check the prayer urn, and then we'll check the mailbag. And if the question in the mailbag is something that maybe I want to throw at my guest, I'll save the answer and throw it at her. So without further ado, something else that's very special about my Friday shows now this year, and everybody seems to love her, and she's welcome to continue being my Friday co-host as long as she wants to be. She's my friend. I love her. I respect her. She's also my publisher. She's the owner of Stellium Books. please give a big, warm Paranormal Ministry family welcome to the one and only Annette Munich.
Hi, Shawn. Hi, everybody. Hi, Zach. Really, really great to be here today. Really excited about our guest. And, also very excited about the book giveaway. That's going to be fabulous. And for sure,
Absolutely.
I'm going to figure out some titles. I know that I'll do Called into Darkness, which is the newest book out at Stellium. And we had Chris and his lovely wife, Harmony DeFlorio, a few weeks ago. So that show's easy to find on YouTube if anybody wants to look that up. And I know for sure I'll give away some of those. That'd be fabulous.
That'll be very, very cool. Very, very cool. And I appreciate all your support there. So that's going to be super cool. And then I know the Halloween show will be huge. So,
And your book is available in audio
oh, that's
book
right. I
format
said
now.
Kindle. Is
So
that the
that's
same thing? Is audio and Kindle the
no,
same thing? Oh,
no. But you can say Kindle, and Kindle is, when you have a little Kindle tablet and you read it off of there.
okay.
And
Uh,
we have audiobook now too, so that's pretty exciting. That's pretty new. So we're offering all these different formats.
very, very cool. And I haven't even, I'm working on the third one, and I'll surprise you with that privately sometime. But are you ready to check the prayer urn?
I am.
Okay, I've been busy in here all week. I'm getting down to the bottom there. If I don't get into the prayer urn a little bit every day all week long, then it's overflowing by the time the show comes around. So I've got Nick L from Oregon. Oregon. Could you offer up a prayer for all those suffering from religious persecution? Whoa. I'm dating myself. I'm aging myself here, but that's heavy. That's a heavy one. And that hits close to home because we were talking in the green room, you and I and our guest today about stuff. And another thing that a lot of people reach out to me for, they're personally experiencing that. It's 2024. When is that going to stop? So evil's everywhere, and religious persecution is. My wife and I have even been victims of it. So let me offer up a nice prayer for Nick L in Oregon. Thank you, Nick, for the. And I'm just going to tell you guys right off the bat who I'm reaching for. I'm reaching for the Virgin Mary because she is so protective over these issues. And so let me find a good one here. Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Mary, powerful Virgin, you are the mighty and glorious protector of the Church. You are the marvelous help for Christians. You are awe inspiring as an army in battle array. In the midst of our anguish, struggle, and distress, defend us from the power of the enemy. And at the hour of our death, receive our soul in heaven. Amen.
Amen.
And what fell out of the book here, I want you guys to take a look at this. This is a prayer that was discovered in 250 AD. It's an ancient liturgical prayer to the Holy Mother, and it goes like this: Under thy protection we seek refuge. O Holy Mother of God, despise not our prayers in our needs, but save us always from all danger. O glorious and blessed Virgin, amen. That's a beautiful one.
Shawn, if you could take a picture of that later and send that to my phone, I would love to have that.
You got it.
I
Actually, I
would
may
love to
even
have
have a couple of extra of those cards. They were gifted to me. I'll just send you one.
They're beautiful.
Let's check the mail bag. Also, I've been reaching into the mailbag. I've been cheating and reaching into the mailbag lately before shows because that's been getting full too. And if I wait till the end of the week, Alicia W. in Utah.
Wow.
After becoming an ordained Catholic priest, do you still have paranormal drive-bys or hitchhikers, if you will? P.S. I'm a ghost hunter and worry about that. How do you prevent that? That's another great question. And I will ask my guest that question. You know what? I'm just going to throw it out there for what it's worth. since becoming an ordained Catholic priest, uh, the uh, the attacks are off the charts. It's constant because now you're really. I used to have just one poster of me hanging up in hell. Now there's like a series of them up, and they would like to see nothing more than the failure and the fall of a priest. So you got to really keep your head on a swivel and keep your guard up. Stay in a state of grace. If you are, I don't know, Alicia, if you're Catholic, but if you are, you need to go to confession once a week. You need to go to Mass once a week and receive Holy Communion and just try to be the best version of yourself that you can every day. And if you ghost hunt, you need to respect the locations, respect the ghosts. They're just people without a body anymore. Don't provoke. And before you leave a location, let them know they're not allowed to follow you home. That you forbid them from doing that. And hopefully they listen to you. They don't always listen, but hopefully they do. So, on that note, are you ready to bring on our very special guest?
I am. I'm really excited about it.
I love her too. I respect her too. I've known her for a while. She's just really cool. I don't know anybody like her. And that's why you all tuned in because you all know her and love her too. She is a psychic medium. She is a very gifted content creator. Had a wonderful podcast, which I'm hoping she brings back. She's a lifelong UFO experiencer. I want to talk to her about that. I know Annette wants to ask some questions for her about that. She's also a near death experience, many times over, survivor. So I want to ask her about that stuff too. She's just really cool. Please give a big, warm Paranormal Ministry welcome to Trish Mo.
Hey,
Trish.
thank you all very much for having me. I'm so excited. You're actually the first show I've agreed to be on this year. Well, aside from one from a previous it was like a New Year's show for UPRN, but that's the only one this year.
Okay, you brought up UPRN, so I've got to ask only because as soon as I posted earlier this week that you were going to be on the show, I had a bunch of people reach out to me wanting to know what happened to the missing piece. Um, that was a great show, and you were right. You mentioned in the green room that I might have been your last interview.
Hmm.
What happened to that? Everybody wants to know.
Well, last year, if people were following me, then I went through an entire transformation in my own life because my house was sold, my daughter broke her leg, everything happened at once. We became homeless for quite a few months. And it was too hard to keep up with the scheduling of the show. And I love all of my co-hosts there and everyone I met on that show. And I do plan on doing my own podcast in the future. I just couldn't keep up with the scheduling of I have nothing, no ill will or nothing bad happened. It was just my own life circumstances prevented me from doing that show. I think even my last interview with you, I was like at a temporary I was staying with a family member at the time, in a temporary circumstance. So it was just hard to keep up with.
Do you mind if I ask now? You're not homeless now, are you?
No. No.
Okay, thank you, Jesus, because I don't remember you mentioning that to me, and that would have really have bothered me, and I would have asked if there was anything I could have
I,
done to
it was
help.
it was crazy. It was literally like everything, like you just mentioned that um kind of like when you became ordained, you started being targeted by every evil spirit and you know and that's kind of what happens. The more and more in depth I got with people inviting me to very, very strong negative energy, negative force cases, that had a huge impact on my own life, Um, and, my kids were targeted at school. That's how my daughter broke her leg, actually. There were so many things that happened. My landlord all of a sudden kicked us out. There was a drive by literally, like, the day before I moved, that probably would have been me out. I was going to go walk my dog, and all of a sudden somebody drove by and so there are all these things that happen. And then even when we tried to find, I probably looked at hundreds of places to rent, and the last time this happened when my son was little, and the landlord just kicked us out. Not because we didn't pay or anything. They sold the house, so which is understandable. It was just unexpected, and I actually ended up getting rid of my dog back then, and then I learned that they had put him to sleep. And
Oh,
my animals are like my kids. I mean, so this time I was like, no matter what, I would rather, and my kids even said it. They're like, no, we would rather live on the street than get rid of our dog. So so it was very hard to find a place that accepted pets. But not only that, the first few days that we didn't have anywhere to go, we put all of our stuff in storage. I didn't have any help, besides my son, who's 16. Um, we put all of our stuff in storage, and this is unbelievable. I went to like 3 or 4 different towns, cities, just to find a hotel, and they were all booked. They were all booked. I went to 22 different hotels just to spend the night, and that's a scary thing. Like, you think, okay, well, I'm not going to be actually on the street. I can always get a hotel because it's not like I still had money, but I spent almost all my savings in a month and a half on hotels, and that gets really expensive. And it's interesting with the help out there, assistance for families. There really isn't any
yeah.
unless you tell them that you're on drugs or, whatever. And that's the only way you can get it. And I'm like, well, I don't do drugs, so I guess I'm not able to get assistance. And I'm not judging people that absolutely not. I'm just saying that was my experience. And
Oh my
so
gosh,
it was really hard.
that's scary. That is really,
Yeah.
really. I even get scared of that sort of stuff. I'm semi-retired now. My wife's the only one bringing down a steady paycheck. She's 16 years older than me. I'd love for her to be able to retire, but I don't know what would happen to us if we didn't have, her paycheck coming in, and we've
Okay.
got the mortgage to pay, and we got to put food on the table and gas in the car, and even I worry about that sort of stuff, and it's scary. Times are scary right now. I'm glad you came
Oh
through that.
yeah. And I think everything happens for a reason, obviously. Um, we've lost everything numerous times and come through it, and my kids are very resilient. They're very humble. I see them in comparison to I'm just saying kids nowadays, even in comparison to when we were younger, get so many more gifts for Christmas and birthdays, and more expensive. Like, kids don't just want a doll or something for their birthday; they want like an iPhone. And it's cra- it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like, so, when it's so many things have changed. I remember going through the Sears or JCPenney's catalog when I was, my kid's age, and like circling a few things and numbering them like 1 through 10, which I wanted the most. And then I knew that was Christmas, and I knew that my birthday was in June. So 6 months later, by the time I wore those toys out, it would be my birthday again. So,
I'm
but
going to bring up something to you, and I hope you remember it. And then after you answer this question, I'm going to let Annette have a go at you because I know she wants to talk about. Um, there's some weird things that have happened to me this week since I announced you coming on the show, and I know
oh,
that
I'm
you're a
sure.
lifelong UFO experiencer and you born outside of Roswell. I see this show on Roswell, and then I see this
Yeah.
movie called Nope, which was a really different, interesting take on the whole alien craft thing. And I'm like, that's just too weird that I'm seeing this stuff. And Trish is coming on. And also, my wife's a near death experience survivor many times over. I know you are. I know Annette wants to talk to you about that. But do you remember when I sent you last Christmas? I sent you a Christmas card.
Mhm.
And do you remember the whole thing about the picture your son wrote you in the dream you had where God had mentioned something to you and then it tied in with my card and it was all just kind of all. Do you remember that?
I do. I knew you were going to say that, actually.
I love that
when
story.
I
Would
was sitting in the
you share that?
backstage, um, Yeah, so years ago, when actually, ironically, when my family was kind of in the same situation, in another town, and that's when, speaking of being like persecuted by the church and things like that, that's when one of the first times I'd ever gone to my church I had been sitting in church, and this was, I want to say, like in the fall before Christmas that year. It was during the Texas shooting that had happened, and that morning I was sitting in my church service, and my entire surroundings changed, almost like a movie. Like I was seeing this playing out, and I was 100% awake, sitting there in my church service, and a guy busts through the door and starts shooting people. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Um, because I had blocked out any of my psychic gifts or anything like that quite a few times in my life, because I was scared. And that specific time, I told the people in my church, and I was in a group, actually, like a women's group. I told them, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Well, then I hear on the news hours later is when that actually happened. Um, and so, but then people started treating me very different. And which my kids and I have gone to quite a few churches, since we moved a lot with their dad being in the military and stuff. There was quite a few that we went to that people judged us automatically and asked, even as a single mom, like, well, where's your husband? Why do you have tattoos? Why are you a sinner? And I'm like, so it took us a long time to find one. And I finally felt comfortable in telling them that. But then they treated me different. Like I was absolutely off my rocker and crazy. And I realized that people don't, it's not that they intentionally do that, I don't think. I think it's because people don't know how to respond to things that they don't understand. And if someone has told you something that happened in a completely different location before it ever happened, that's scary. I mean, it was scary to me. And so that year, kind of the same thing. We went down, we keep repeating this. Obviously, there's a reason. The house we were living in, first of all, our entire neighborhood flooded except for our house. Entire neighborhood, which is crazy. I have a picture of it. Like up to my fence line was flooded everywhere in every direction besides my house. And that was a year that I had this whole spiritual awakening, separated from the church. I got this tattoo on my finger from Psalms 23, of a cross and one that says free. Right after that, I came home because I'm like, God, what do I do? What do I do? Like everything is falling apart. Um, and all of a sudden, I had a heart attack. Um, and I saw this giant angel, I guess. I had these huge, like 20-foot ceilings in my living room, and that's the last thing I saw before I had a heart attack. And it was right after I got that tattoo. And after that, my entire world changed, and that's when I heard, um, anytime, like from literally like a voice from God, that said, anytime you see a rainbow, there I am. And so I started paying attention to that in my life. And then my son had drawn a picture in school of a lighthouse with sharks surrounding it. But the lighthouse, the light that it was emitting was a rainbow all around, like, protecting from the sharks. You sent me that card that had, the rainbow, um,
My address.
at the address. Yeah. And so that's
Yeah.
how I discern certain people, and it's even ironic that we're still in Kansas, somewhere over the rainbow. So but it was all very profound, and that's how certain connections, certain scenarios play out in my life. And I think that happens to
You
everyone.
had
I think we just don't
misplaced
pay
your
attention.
son's picture,
Yes.
and then when you were looking at my card and noticed the
Yep.
address, his didn't that picture just mysteriously fall out of a
Yeah.
cabinet?
Oh yeah, yeah, and that happens that crazy things like that happen all the time too. It literally just fell off a bookshelf. Like I didn't even know or remember that we keep all our kids' art, try to, but there's so much art from the time they're kindergarten through, he's in high school now. So it just fell out of nowhere. quite literally,
This
right
is my
when I was
last comment.
opening.
This is my last comment, and I'm going to shut up and let you and Annette chat. I love us. I always hear you say, "The dead show me how to live," and I don't know why I love that statement so much. Um, and I've had my fair share of dealing with the dead in my life, but I love that though, and I know sometime during this show before we kick you out of here, I'd love for you to explain that. But I know Annette's got some questions for you, so I'm going to enjoy my drink now and let you guys chat.
I actually think that's really fascinating. I would love to hear that. And also, I feel like in this instance, because you and Sean have talked before and you've done this show before, and I haven't seen you before. So, as far as, the things that you may have already said over and over, and then I would ask you again, some guests, you don't need to start all the way back at the beginning to what was the first thing that ever happened, and when did you first notice that, you had abilities, and did your psychic abilities come from your NDE, or did that ramp it up? Because I heard that from a lot of other people, that having an NDE caused their psychic abilities, or kind of supercharged them in some way. But I'm actually very happy with the conversation as it's going, and I'd love to hear her answer to what you were saying. But those are kind of the things I was going to ask, very basic stuff that the audience might already know the answer to because she's been on before.
Well, it's been a while since she's been on, but also in before the show ends, I would also like to talk about you working cold cases using your psychic abilities. I love it when a person uses their gifts, it finally gets to a point where they accept it and they just go
Mhm.
with it because it's God gifts. They're gifts from God, and you use it to help people. So we'll get into that, but talk to us about your gift. Talk to us about near death experiences, and then talk to us about how the dead help you live.
Well, so first of all, my gift, I grew up in the mountains, in New Mexico, and I always, communicated with, saw like forest elementals, spirit, all kinds of things, fairy spirit. I thought that was normal because that's all I had ever known. I hadn't lived in a city. The mountains were my home. I It was just normal. It was my everyday life. I thought that was something that everybody did. And so I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't There were spirits that came through our living room all the time. Some of them, yes, I was terrified of. And I would go sleep on my parents' floor because then I got scared. I don't want to wake them up. And but then other times, especially up there, which is another thing I think with autistic kids, especially, which I didn't know at the time. Um, I was called. Oh, sorry, my
That's
dog.
okay.
I was called to the forest. Like, I would wander off in the forest by myself with our dog all the time and encounter all these different, like, literally, like a mountain lion. I ran home and, I would tell my mom, I saw this giant cat, like this giant. I didn't know what a mountain lion was. I said tiger, but without stripes. Um, and there's things that I was always protected from. Um, but I was born outside of Roswell, New Mexico. That's something that has been, in my life forever. Um, and I have had numerous experiences with that. But as far as the near death experiences later on in life, I was scared of the dark until I was in my 30s. I was scared of spirits. I was scared of all of these things that if I had just stopped fighting it, it would my life would have been much more peaceful. And I wasn't diagnosed as autistic until, um, a few years ago, actually, until I was like 38. So, but it makes sense now, even talking to my mom, she told me, which I had forgotten, I had speech therapy when I was very little. I had seizures when I was very little. So a lot of those things are, um, one of the first indications of autism. And um, so going, you know, a few of my near death experiences, heart attacks, being struck by lightning, electrocuted, things like that. There was only one instance when I had my son. I had to have an emergency C-section. That's the only time I was ever artificially resuscitated. And I think we discussed that once. That time, very, very scary, dark things started happening in my life. And it made me think that, we're probably not supposed to be doing that. We're probably like, you can't. I mean, yes, granted, there's different theories on that. Like, okay, well, maybe God, used the hand of the doctor to resuscitate you and things like that. But at the same time, that time specifically was very different than the other near death experiences because it was artificial. I was brought back artificially. Um, and it caused me to repeat a lot of, I mean, quite literally repeat certain things in my life from that date on, which was quite literally, hell to me. Um, so there's that. But then as far as abduction experiences later on in life, where having even to having children taken and things like that.
Yeah.
My my perspective on that over the years has changed very much as well. I consider I consider all beings God's creation, first of all, whether it be um, fairies, demons, aliens, anything, all of that. So I consider alien experiences now, or extraterrestrial, interdimensional, spiritual warfare, in a sense.
Yeah.
There's some that are very good, some that are very bad. Um, but one of the movies I saw a long time ago that really resonated was Signs. I think we talked about that before with M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Um, and it's about um, a priest, a father, and his children who start experiencing these things. And without giving the story away, it's the water that affects these extraterrestrials that are like invading their home, but the water only affects them because the little girl touched them, and she's of a holy family. So it's an interesting take on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I thought, especially dealing with demonic activity and spirits and all kinds of things in my life. Um, I think that's what it all is spiritual warfare. And I think, nowadays it's especially hard for people to discern what is, because the devil would obviously can use religion as a very, there can be people in as religious leaders even that are really bad people, like the guy that it reminds me, can't think of his name. Is it Miller from the South that was accused of killing his wife recently?
Oh yeah. Murda.
Can't think of his name. Well, no, this was a
It was
pastor.
pastor. Okay. Yeah.
I think it was Miller. I want to say that. Um, but there's things like that. But so it gives people a really bad. There's such a stigma with anything regarding religion or spirituality or when you say spiritual warfare, things like that. And I think it's mostly just people don't have the knowledge or the. I don't think we're giving people the right tools to discern or to understand the difference between the two.
Yeah. It's hard. I get people. Lots of cases come my way, and they tell me these stories, and I'm thinking there could be a variety of different things they're experiencing.
Hmm.
Um, what's your take on, like I mentioned, that movie Nope, that I just stumbled upon this movie, and I never watched these movies, but it was the alien spacecraft was actually an entity. It was a living entity. There wasn't little spacemen inside there walking around. This actual craft was the entity. And I hear more and more of that too. I talked to I can't remember his name, but I've many times have spoken to this one guy in Arizona that films these spacecrafts that appear to be living entities, and then you see some of the film footage by the government that they've. I know they haven't released it all, but sometimes you look at some of the behavior of these supposed craft, and that they
Mm-hmm.
seem very uh very unmechanical like, almost very lifelike. What's your,
Yeah.
with the experiences that you've had, what is your take on that?
Well, that I think that's 100% possible because if you talk to people who are close to me in my own life, and half the time, at first they're like, "Okay, I'm losing," like to themselves, they say, "I'm losing my mind. This can't be happening." But even like, okay, it's like my vehicles, for instance. My vehicles themselves will take on almost their own personality, and I believe that anything in this world can be inhabited by a spirit. I mean, you could, whether it be a stone or an electrical device, a car, anything, in my opinion. And I that's the danger of robots and AI, and because they need a host, they need a shell, they need a physical body. That physical body can be a teddy bear. As we've seen some of these movies, you go back to like Chucky, things like that, dolls that are possessed. That's a huge. People don't believe that, but that's a body for a spirit to inhabit. And it's no different with mechanical devices. So you do have to be careful with that too. Um, but yes, like my vehicles will communicate, um, not just with me either, with like certain people in my family and stuff. And I don't know how to explain it. Like sometimes if there's a danger, and yes, that could be, my guardian angel working through my car, absolutely. But it's no different than these spaceships. Like something is controlling that. Something is you know bringing a more intelligent, um, I guess, communication through the mechanical parts of it. Um, and so that happens all the time to me. Um, I know other people, like, without seeing things like that, they probably wouldn't believe it. But there are, like Transformers, the movies, that's another one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There's some truth to those. I didn't even know about the '80s movie. I vaguely remembered it. Was it Knight Rider, where his car talked to him? Like,
Knight Rider, and also that Stephen King book and movie, Christine.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah.
That,
yep.
yeah, that movie. And I don't want to really jump in, but I wanted to kind of ask you something before we got too far away from it. When you were talking about walking out in the woods and walking in nature and nature spirits and things like fairies and um, how
Elemental.
often would you see things like that? How prevalent is that? Is that like something that's around us all the time, or every now and then you come across um, nature spirits?
No, it's something that's around us all the time. It's just due to our environment, humans have kind of become disconnected from from
Because
the ability to see higher. A lot of them vibrate on a different frequency that we often can't. Not everyone can see. I think me being autistic, I'm more sensitive to a lot of things, and that's probably why I have the ability to see a lot of those. But also my heritage, my lineage goes all the way back to Scotland and Ireland, where a lot of those things
right,
have always been around and have always existed. And so I like to tell people, like, different souls have different ages. Some souls are newer to the human experience than others. Some are very old. I have a very old soul. So souls that are younger, if this is their first experience, say, they might only be able to exist and see things in this second dimension, say. And that's where I think you get people like flat earthers and things like that. It's not that they're wrong, it's that that's how they see their world. That's how they
Yeah,
experience their world. And then you move up to the 3D. Okay, 3D, if you're thinking of simple geometry and things like that, then you can see things up, down, right, left, diagonal. There's your world's expanded, so you have a much larger perspective. Neither are wrong. It's just different experiences. Then you go to the 5D, where you can see even, front, back, like different timelines, things like that. But we all coexist together, which is what makes it hard. Um, when everybody's on a different level, you know.
Do you
I
think that
just
being
find
autistic has something to do with um, do you, this is going to sound dumb. What's new coming from me? Do you think you were uh, how do they communicate being autistic and psychic? I get a lot of cases where parents are telling me that their child that is either autistic or has Down syndrome is being targeted by some entity. I get that a lot, and I'm wondering if them already being that way attract is like a magnet and attracts that type of activity, or is it the opposite way around? They're just going to come anyway, and then they search for the weak.
Um, I think both is true. I think so. First of all, there's such a big difference between autism and Down syndrome. Down syndrome affects the brain in such a way where a lot of people with Down syndrome might only have the mentality of say, a very young child, like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old. I used to work with adults with developmental disabilities, and that's how they, I guess, categorize based on intelligence and things like that. Um, and then autism, I think that we weren't made for this world. you know, it's very hard having. I think when a person's born with any type of neurodivergence or things like that, they're already open to experiencing so many more things than most people. But our world isn't equipped for that, because not everybody else experiences those things. So not everybody else is bothered by those things or oversensitive to them or even understands them. When I was little, if I went and told my mom about a monster I saw, not all of them, I wasn't afraid of half of them, but she would tell me they didn't exist. Understandably so, because she couldn't see them.
Yeah.
But that makes it very hard. And with autism, that's what starts, causing them to like shut down and the masking that we do a lot in life, because that's fitting into society because we've had to. Back in the day, thank God I wasn't born in the 40s. I would be in a mental institution, I would be in a state hospital. And only because everybody else didn't see the world the way that I do, and most autistic people, that's the thing. Once spirits realize that someone can see them or communicate with them or whatever, yes, that absolutely makes them a target. It's like, oh wow, like one out of how many thousands of people they come across can actually hear them so it does make them open to it. When you start attracting even good spirits, you're also going to attract the bad, so they both come. But there's just no, it's hard when everybody around you doesn't even acknowledge the existence of those things because they can't see them.
Well, I know this may or may not. I don't know, Annette. What do you think? I think there's a lot. This question we got from Alicia W. in Utah after becoming a no, or was it? She's a ghost hunter also. She worries about attachments,
Hmm.
and you do a lot of cold cases. You use your abilities for your cold cases. So now it's non. I know it's nonstop for you. Do you just let it do what it does, or do you have a way to turn that off, or how does that work, and how much help do people take what you tell them to heart? Like, I mean, you want to help, and these spirits tell
Right.
you this person's here, this person's there, this happened to this person, cold cases. But are people listening to you? Is that frustrating?
Oh, it's very frustrating. Well, first of all, I wasn't intentionally doing that initially in the last few years, but I started just randomly stumbling upon, freshly dug graves in the middle of the forest or bones in someone, on my morning walk or like it kept happening over and over. And of course, nobody ever listened to me. But then what became dangerous was I started a few times. I think I got to a location before the crime ever happened. Like I beat the suspect
Oh yeah.
there, and
Uh,
that's dangerous. Um, so not to mention there's a lot of corruption, unfortunately, in law enforcement. There's a lot of good too. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of corruption. So that's another thing that kind of is very frustrating because you don't know, you know, who, especially on a local level, like who's involved, who's not involved, who to
yeah.
turn to, things
Scary.
like that. Yeah, absolutely. And so I started focusing more on, well, they just started coming to me. Probably was like subconsciously intentional. I'm like, okay, well, obviously it's really dangerous for me to work on cases that are in my direct vicinity when I can do the same thing by remote viewing and things like that in another location where it's not going to harm, I'm not going to run into a killer, hopefully.
Yeah.
Like, um, and so that's when one of the first cases, and they don't, there's a lot of law enforcement that 100% works with psychics and mediums and believes them because they've helped solve tons of cases. And then there's still the other half that absolutely just brushes it off, you know. But what was happening with me, I was actually like quite literally tripping over evidence. This wasn't just like a vision or an intuitive thing, or I wasn't reading tarot card. Like I would literally like come upon a crime scene. And so that's a little bit different than, that's just like any person stumbling upon evidence of, you know, out in the open.
Do you feel you were
Um,
being led to these crime scenes?
well, it happens so often that I had to have been. I think it was
Yeah.
the energy. So any crime, any any death, anything like that leaves an energetic signature in that location. It's just like haunted houses or things like that. And I've actually done a lot of research on. I mean, through these experiences, like comparing them to, it's similar to possessions. If the person has a very traumatic scar on themselves, an energetic, footprint basically of something that's happened in their life, something that's happened in their family, something, I think that's where certain entities are attracted to certain, it's magnetic. No different than a location with a crime scene. It's the energy that stays there. Energy never dissipates. It always remains through time. You can still feel the energy of old battlefields and things like that. So it's no different. I think there's just certain people that carry things like that as well. And that's something, like I said initially, I wasn't aware that this was happening. So it became dangerous that I was just automatically being drawn to, like, even really bad things happening. I would talk to
Yeah.
somebody and the next day they would go out and die and like get hit by a car or something. I wasn't causing that. That was already going to happen, but I must have been drawn to that vibration
Yeah.
unknowingly. And so I think with mediums and ghost hunters and things like that, that is something you have to absolutely be aware of, so you're not in the middle of tragedy constantly, because it will affect your life, like like it did mine last year. And so I've been working really hard on not doing that, not bringing home attachments, not
It's
you have to
hard.
keep your vibration high. Yeah. Yeah. Everything you eat, everything, and people don't even think all the way down to the things you eat. Say I still eat meat, I'm not a vegan. um but you have to think about where you get your meat too. How was that meat raised? There's energy in every single thing we do. And so when it comes to somebody who is in that line of work or that field or that's their mission, maybe the normal person doesn't have to do that every day, but you actually have to start paying attention to those things where it will affect you, if you're more sensitive to it.
Well, even
So,
like
She,
Annette, when she's editing books for her authors, many times she experiences a lot of
all
paranormal
kinds of things
activity.
start happening
Yeah,
to me. It's almost like, I
yep,
know it sounds crazy. It's almost like I become part of the story in a way. I'm part of the process. And then I believe that there's energies that want to slow me down because a lot
yeah,
of the books that I put out, again, you're the most fascinating and lovely person. I could talk to you for about 10 years. I've said hardly nothing, but I've had about a million things I wanted to say, but I didn't want to stop you because you were so interesting in what you were saying. But I feel like these energies want to slow me down. And a lot of the books that I put out, they're not just to tell the story, they are
right.
spiritual warfare and tell you, how to handle situations like that. So they really don't like these books to go out.
Oh, right.
So
Yes.
I've gone through a lot with those. We joke that I could write a book about all the things that have happened to me
absolutely.
while I was doing other people's books. And even I've had instances where the particular ghosts that were involved in the story, I encountered them myself
Yep.
in my own home. And the one that I talk about a lot because it really affected me, this little girl, and I loved her and I prayed for her, and she stayed for a long time. She came with the book. I was doing a revised edition. The book arrived and there was a knock on the door, not high enough like an adult, like two-thirds. I opened the door up. She came in. I had her for a long time. And I just, my heart went out to her. And I got to the point where it was just regular that she was around. And, then she just slowly kind of, my encounters with her were less and less. But see, I had paranormal things happening to me since I was like a teenager. And so a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, I feel like, and I had um, psychics say they know that you can see them, they know that you can hear them. The more encounters that you have, the more encounters you're likely to have
Oh, right.
because they know that. They see you and they're like, oh, okay, that girl, she'll be able to see me or she'll hear me
Yeah.
or whatever way she discerns. She'll be able to feel me, which was, interesting when I was talking about being out in the forest. I feel things, I can't see them. I can feel, but
Mhm.
I very rarely will see anything, but I know it. So, and, for you to say that, like, almost all the time there's things there, that's kind of like really, really interesting for me because I'm trying to be with myself like, well, that was probably nothing. That's probably nothing. That's probably nothing. Oh, I'll say a prayer about that and then I won't think about it anymore. I do that a lot. I'll be like, okay, well, I'll just say a prayer about that and not think about it anymore and just kind of keep going through life because if you're sort of, I don't want to, I mean, I don't call myself a psychic, but your one foot is in the 3D world and one foot is kind of in the spiritual plane where your day isn't like other people's days and it's not going to be, and that's okay. And you just pray for what you don't understand and pray for anything that seems really sad, and because there's only so much you can do about it.
I think I think the greatest thing I've learned, and actually a job I had when I was younger helped me. Well, in school, I went to a very violent school when I was younger. There were a lot of gangs and stuff, and the fellow students voted me to be a conflict mediator, which is crazy. I was like one of seven white students out of 700 or 800 in southwestern New Mexico. And so here I am on the like I had to go to training for this, on the playground on weekends, few weekends, and then I actually did it. And I would go and like take my little clipboard and like write out notes of why the fight started and actually listen to the conflict. And then in college, I worked for Sally Mae, the student loan, everybody, but I worked in the claims aversion center, which was the highly delinquent borrowers. So what I learned from those things is much like how I deal with people ask me, they're like, how can you go to these places and interact with even with demonic entities? And and it's like they're not going to hurt you. They're not I'm like, well, first of all, you can't fear these things. That gives anything power. Fear is the devil's greatest illusion. That gives, everything power. But second of all, when it comes to anything in life, whether it be dealing with animals, people, spirits, empathy, which you have, I can tell you have a lot. You're an empath in it. That's how you pick up on these things. Um, Empathy is one of the greatest things, that gifts that we can be given, because and it's not sympathy, empathy. When that does not justify things, that does not, forgive things, but when you can listen to something like these demonic spirits, based on my own experiences from being drawn to negative situations, they're not there by choice always. They're drawn to the negative energy there.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily want to be there, just as much as the people don't want them there. But when you listen to these things and you're able to relate and you're able to empathize, that's what creates a sense of peace and love. And when you meet things with love, it's like with our kids, or like us as children of God, when we're doing things that they don't want us, like my kids, they're doing things that I don't want them to do, or acting in ways that they're acting out about something. It usually has nothing to do with me, of course, or people around them. It has an inner conflict with themselves. And when you meet that with love, it's like negative entities, or like dogs that have been abused, anything. Those are the ones that need more love. Even ourselves. When you show things, empathize, and you listen and you show it love, it changes everything. And then there's no fear, there's no conflict. Everybody walks away, without a battle.
Well,
Um,
I've got a suggestion. I I have to have you back because I got to kick you out of here, and there's so much more I want to talk to you
oh my
about.
gosh, it's already almost 5. Yeah.
I got to have you back, and next time I promise. I think once the show starts, I might even tune out and just let you and Annette chat because
I would
I
just love to talk to you. Oh my goodness. And we have
Sure.
great comments from
Sure.
people saying how fascinating that this show was. I'm seeing these great comments from people and talking also about autism. And, it really, a lot of this is very touching to people's hearts and very, very interesting. And you're like this great, like broad spectrum, because there's so many topics in here that each one could be delved into for an hour in and of itself.
will you come back, Trish?
Oh, absolutely. I love being on your show.
I'll wait until the I'll kick you out of here. I'll kick Annette out of here. I'll look at my calendar. I'll throw some dates at you. It'll probably be October, but I got to have you back, and I'll let you. I promise I'll let you and Annette chat more next time. I'll bring some food in or something, and I'll have a meal while you guys chat. But listen, I love you. I respect you. You know I do. I pray for you all the time. Have a wonderful remainder of your Friday evening. Give your kids a big hug and a kiss for me. Give your dog a big hug and a kiss for me. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you so much. It was great meeting you, Annette. Thank you for having
Thank
me
you
on your
so
show again,
much.
Sean.
God bless you.
Bye.
We'll see you
See you
later.
soon.
Bye. I
Fascinating.
love you too, Annette, and I respect you too.
Oh,
You know that. And I pray for you all the time too.
thank
You
you. I
know that.
pray all the time too. You and
Anything
Sharon.
you want to say to anybody before I kick you out of here?
Oh, brand new. We got Rick Hayes and his 3 books available on audio now. And he's going to be on the show in November. And he's really
Cool.
fascinating person too. You're going to love him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
So
that.
that's my news.
I won't see you Monday, which is Happy Meeting Monday with Susan Ahern, but I will see you next Friday. You're going to love these two gals too. They're the co-hosts of The Outer Realm, which has been a very popular radio show forever. Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano will be here next Friday. Well,
Perfect.
I'll see you then.
I love it. It all sounds great.
Have a
Thank
great
you so
weekend.
much. Have a great weekend.
See you later. All right, brothers and sisters. usocc.org or bishopjameslong.com. If you're interested in night prayer or Bible study, you can find the links to those there. That's the church I belong to. Check out Zach's website, communitypayitforward.us. Communitypayitforward.us. Just go there and be pleasantly surprised. Him and his organization do a lot of great things for a lot of people. So check that out. You already know who my guests are coming up. You can find me now on Facebook under Lawrence Morais, which is a stage name. Eli Roth Presents the Legion of Exorcists is streaming everywhere. No word yet on a season 2. Keep your fingers crossed. And I would like to thank Things Network. I would like to thank Pact, little p, capital ACT, Podcasting for All Coming Together channel. I would like to thank Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. And I would like to thank Spirit Alabama for all of these networks simulcasting my show. God bless them all for doing that. And now it is bad joke time. I'm going to pull a bad joke out of this Haunted Carnival Barker hat, a joke that one of you sent in. And it's my poor attempt to put a smile on everybody's face before I say good night and have a great weekend. And if it's a super bad joke, I'll pull another one. Why was Cinderella so bad at soccer? She kept running away from the ball. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. I love you all. God bless you all in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Peace.